What's going on, everybody? It's Rod with Pow Group. Welcome back on the Pursuit of Wealth, your home for MJ Stocks, crypto assets, news, and interviews. Today is Thursday, March 20th. Hope you're well. In this video, we're going to dive into SNDL's Q4 and full fiscal 2024 earnings. I'll give my thoughts and opinions. They did have a pretty mixed report. They came in with a huge miss in terms of earnings per share or EPS, but they did beat pretty decently on the revenue, but the stock was down. I think it had to do, like I said, with the EPS miss. So we'll discuss all of that and more, and we'll take a look at the SNDL price chart. I'll give my thoughts and opinions on what to expect in terms of the price action in the days, weeks, months ahead. So we'll dive right in. Before we get to it, make sure to smash the like. It helps support me in the channel. If you're new, you can subscribe, tick the bell, all that good stuff. You'll be notified on any future videos. And as always, this is not financial advice. This is for entertainment purposes only. And I do own SNDL in my portfolio. Full disclosure. You can follow us over on X as well, formerly Twitter. Handle for that is @GroupPow. Going to be using that as my platform of choice going forward. So as you can see, we're expecting revenue 257.68 is what the actual was, and we were expecting 248.14. So big beat there, but EPS was forecasted negative 0.02, negative nonetheless, but it came in at negative 0.25. So a much wider loss than expected, which is why I think we sold off. But to go through some of the highlights here, the company reports record full year net revenue, gross profit and gross margin, as well as positive cash flow and free cash flow. And like I said, we'll jump into the chart here in just a moment. All information is in Canadian dollars unless otherwise indicated. So I already mentioned revenue for the fourth quarter was 257.7 million and 920.4 million for the full year 2024. Gross margin was 26.7%, a little bit lower. I just went over Oxley's Q4, and they had a gross margin of 54%. But a lot of this has to do with the fact that they're into alcohol retail, MJ retail, and they're more of the discounter with the value buds, similar to like a Canna Cabana or a High Tide, which there's some information coming on that. They made an investment into High Tide, but more on that in just a moment. But that was compared to 26.1% for the full year. Operating loss was negative 76.1 million. We'll scroll through a little quicker here. So cash flow was negative by 44.6 million in the fourth quarter, driven by the acquisition of Nova's minority equity interest. Free cash flow was positive, both in the fourth quarter and for fiscal 2024, 11.6 million, and for the full year, 8.9 million. So as I mentioned, completed the privatization of Nova MJ through acquisition of the remaining minority equity interest, acquired business of assets of Indiva, the No Future gummies, kind of funny. There's some irony in that. Indiva had no future, so it's now part of SNDL, positioning SNDL as the largest manufacturer of infused edibles in Canada. Received approval from the Florida Department of Health for the transfer of Parallel license, an important milestone and prerequisite for completing the Parallel restructuring process. So that's exciting. Repurchased 10,764,107 SNDL common shares for cancellation at an average price of US 181 per share, and they acquired 4,350,000 common shares of High Tide, equivalent to 5.4 ownership. So 5.4%. So there's been some speculation that they might be doing a takeover or something like that. I think it's more or less them just kind of hedging their bets and the whole sector being undervalued. And they're also a producer, right? SNDL is a producer. They're also into alcohol retail and MJ retail. So we're seeing that differentiation, and High Tide's only in retail. So it seems like they're taking a bet on retail, but who knows? They've got a boatload of cash. You never know what could happen if they attempt a hostile takeover. There's still a lot of consolidation that needs to happen in the space, but like I said, it could just be them hedging their bets. And some people are saying that SNDL is a little jealous of High Tide because of their success in the retail segment. But let me know your thoughts and opinions. To be completely honest, I used to shop at Value Buds all the time, but I've kind of since transitioned over to Canna Cabana, which is High Tide. But I would say I'd probably shop at it's probably like a 60-40 split, but Canna Cabana is closer to me as well, so that probably has some to do with it. But I do like the elite program and things like that. It's just SNDL, I own it. I'm very bullish on it long term. But in terms of the king of retail, I would say that's High Tide. But again, SNDL is very different, right? They're a producer. They pay excise taxes. We'll discuss that in a moment. Usually around a third of producers' revenue top line goes to excise taxes, which ends up with a much smaller bottom line compared to like a high tide. They don't pay excise taxes, so maybe they're betting on that as well. The whole fact that they have to pay excise tax and there's been a lack of reform. So I think it's kind of smart move. Let me know your thoughts and opinions on this in the comment section. But speaking of cash, they have 667.6 million of unrestricted cash, marketable securities, and investments. So that totals everything up. If we scroll down here to the actual cash, though, at the end of the period, it was 218,359,000. So that's just adding up all of their investments and securities, etc. So we'll move along a little quicker here. So they had a presentation. There's 37 pages of it. So we won't go through the whole thing, but I just want to kind of show you a little bit of glimpse into this here. So obviously they have their liquor retail, MJ operations, and then their investments, right? So this Sunstream, that's their kind of U.S. approach. And like I said, that Florida news that I just mentioned, strong balance sheet, vertically integrated MJ, retail scale and experience. And, Zach George, CEO, used to be a hedge fund guy. And like I said, sitting on a boatload of cash. They have 2,700 employees, which is pretty crazy. So retail stores, liquor, they have 350, plus MJ as well. 605 million market cap, no debt, which is awesome. Unrestricted cash, there you go, 218 million. So record net revenue, we'll just go through a little bit quicker here. There's the highlights, but again, the gross margin definitely lower. But again, that's just because they're more into the value segment. But that should start to creep up. Same thing with High Tide, really. But this goes through the liquor highlights. So if you want to pause this, take a look at it, or check it out on their website, Wine and Beyond, Liquor Depot, and Ace Liquor. So I'm in Edmonton, Alberta, and they're everywhere, all three of those. But as I mentioned, they have Value Buds. It's their retail segment. 185 stores in Alberta, BC, Manitoba, Ontario, Saskatchewan. Superette, they have Value Buds and Spirit Leaf. Operations. So yeah, their actual net revenue of MJ was 109.5 million, an increase of 22.4 million, and 26% increase year over year. Gross margin a little bit lower, 19.9%. And like I said, that's because they're in the value segment. All right, we'll go through a little bit quicker here. Here's some of their top brands. I hear a lot of good things about the Palmettos. They also have those straight edge skinny J's. And like I said, they have the no future because Indiva has no future. And then it goes over their investments. So they got performing loans, investment under restructuring. So they have Skymint, Parallel. They've got the Cannabis, Juicy, and Ascend, Delta 9, and Equities High Tide. And there's a quick snapshot of the USA investment portfolio. I think this is going to be a company that's going to be massive in the long run, and then it compares SNDL plus Sunstream potential equitized portfolio, and they're just behind Green Thumb, Trulieve, and Cureleaf. Very bullish on Cureleaf as well, long term. So there's some competitors. Like I said, there's a lot here, so we won't go through everything for the sake of time in this video. But if you haven't seen that, like I said, you can pause the video or take a look at that on your own time directly on SNDL.com. If we take a look at excise taxes for 2024, they ended with 54,971,000 in excise tax compared to 48,719,000 in 2023, the year prior. So again, that is a big chunk, right, of their revenue. So excise tax of their MJ revenue. And it's unfortunate. These producers have to pay that much. We could potentially, I think they're looking to call an early election here, Carney, in April. So the end of April, I think it's April 28th. So we might see the Canadian federal budget delayed a little bit. We'll see what happens with that. But if it does switch from a flat fee to a percentage fee, that's going to save a ton of these producers money. And there's also improvements in Canada recently. They're going from 13 stamps in all the different provinces and territories to one national stamp. That's going to cut down on the burden on a lot of these different producers in Canada, these LPs. And then we also saw a regulation change with regards to regulations, packaging, and labeling, that type of thing. You're going to be able to see inside the package. It's going to be transparent for the first time, and it's going to help save these producers time and money. So we are starting to see a little bit of this writing on the wall that the federal government is starting to catch up and support the industry. And I think I've said for a while now that once the U.S. removes 280E, that's around the same time that we'll see excise tax reform in Canada. And I think that could be very, very close. Once big tech, crypto, AI takes less of a spotlight in the US, I think they're going to focus on MJ. More than likely going to get at least rescheduling, safe banking done, uplisting to the NYSE and the NASDAQ for these US companies. And then we're going to see a bull run like you wouldn't believe. And then I think we're going to see excise tax in Canada and then, internationally as well. I went through the MD&A, so the management discussion and analysis. It's really long. I didn't see anything that really stood out there. But yeah, it was almost 30 pages and tons of text. So if anybody's seen anything that stood out there, let me know. But yeah, as you can see, stock sold off. So on the earnings date, we pulled back about 6%, a little over 6%, so not too bad. But we did have that daily bear flag I mentioned as well, and we had a target of $1.74, and then we had a double bottom there essentially at 174, I had the wrong number there. It was 165. Yeah, 165, and then we hit 165. Yeah, so 165 double bottom. Then we lost that. We actually are forming a daily inverse head and shoulders here at the moment. So we just take our head and shoulders tool. There's your left, your head, and then a potential right shoulder forming here now. And then you just take your measured move by going from the neckline to the head, move that out to your neckline. And if we confirm it, we'll confirm it by getting back above 165, get above 165. The target on that would be about 183. Taking a look at the weekly time frame, not looking too hot here. It is a weekly bear flag. So we had a daily bear flag. Now it's translated into a weekly bear flag, and we'll just get rid of some of this noise here. Actually, it's not too bad. We'll go from there. Yeah, I'll get rid of it. Just want to get the most accurate. Yeah, and I was off a little bit. There we go. So we'll get that out of the way. So anything under the 0.32 fib there at 167 is a potential weekly bear flag, unfortunately. So we're taking a look here, unless you're hoping for lower prices like myself so you can add more. But as of right now, and I'm just waiting for big tech, crypto, AI to top out so I can rotate all of my crypto profits into, I'm getting very close to rotating more of my crypto profits into more beaten down MJ. My number one crypto holding, which is XRP, is worth more money dollar-wise than my entire MJ portfolio combined. And I have like, a dozen cryptos. So that's just some perspective for you. But this weekly bear flag, in order to negate it, we need to get above 167. So if you see that daily inverse head and shoulders confirm and hit that 183 target, it'll negate it. And if we lose support there at 148, then that's going to confirm it. Then you just take your measured move there from the high to the low, move it out, and you're looking at a move down to 125 would be the measured move and target. If we take a look at the weekly time frame here, we're actually starting to see the MACD and the stochastic on the weekly time frame cross bullish. I'd say it's at least 2 or 3 weeks away, best case scenario. And we're still below the 10-week moving average. So 170 there, going to be strong resistance. If we take a look at the weekly moving averages, yeah, we're back below all of the weekly moving averages. We're a while before we see the 50 and the 200 cross, which would be the first time in history. If that happens, probably going to be up $5 in no time. But yeah, at least it'd be like 3 or 4 months before, based on how far away they are. And again, that's kind of what I'm thinking. Big tech, crypto, AI should enter a bear market over that same time, over the next few months. I think we got another, 2 to 3 months of major bullishness. And then I think it's going to be a brutal bear market that could potentially span a year or two for the broader market and big tech, crypto, AI. At which point, MJ should benefit from rotational plays. But if the S&P 500 were to drop, 10% in a day, well, that's not going to be good for MJ. But I would expect MJ to recover a lot more, a lot better quickly, and could go on to become one of the best performing sectors. We also could see a golden cross over the next several weeks. So the 50 and the 200, when the 50 is below the 200-day moving average and they cross, that's a golden cross. When the 50 is above the 200 and they cross, that's a death cross. So the death cross occurred here back at the beginning of 2025. And we see tons of downside as a result. And now we're looking to see that golden cross here over the next few weeks. But going into it there, it's Rod with Power Group. Thanks again for joining us in the pursuit of wealth. Let me know what you think of this report. If there was anything else that I didn't mention that stood out to you, always love hearing from you. We'll continue the conversation in the comments section. And we'll see you on the next video. Have a great night.